Welcome everybody to the Building Resilient podcast. We are here today with a very special guest. This is part of my series that I'm doing about the 5 skills that are needed to the leader in 2025. We did the first show last week with Christine West talking about emotional intelligence. This week, we're going to have an incredible guest, my friend Charles Hamm. We're going to be talking about adaptive leadership. There are 3 more series that are going to come. I'm going to have Angelica Corral talking about hybrid work. I'm going to have Tara Lafon Gotch talking about servant leadership. And I'm going to have Lawana Bradford talking about anti-fragile leadership. The 5 topics are incredible topics, are incredible guests, incredible stories, and I'm going to begin talking about my good friend Charles Hamm. So Charles is a Texas to the bone. He's a veteran Marine sergeant, retired. He's an entrepreneur. He's a 3-time #1 international best-selling author. We're going to talk about him, about his book. And with over more than 75 years, in fact, I think this is not updated, it's around 79, changing identities, including that of adopting husband and grandfather. He has his cookie bandit. Charles has experience in the highs and in the lows of life, and we're going to talk about that. He lives here in the Texan countryside, and Charles took the social media to channel his daily thoughts on society. We're going to also talk about that. Inclusivity and mindful living. Quick in accruing and engaging. He has today 27,000 followers, Charles. How much followers do you have in LinkedIn? 27,000?
Pardon?
In LinkedIn, you had 27,000 followers, correct?
Yes, 20, 20. It's right at 27.
Okay, 27. So he's a big guy, a big influencer in LinkedIn. And now we have this cowboy that has this incredible book called Ponder on It, Pilgrims. It's called The Bucolic Mark Twain of the Critter Councils and the Cookie Bandits. We're going to ask him why that title. So thank you, Charles, to be here in my show. The mics are yours.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you.
Well, talking about this topic, adaptive leadership, I'm going to make you a first question about what is for you being an adaptive leadership? What is your experience being an adaptive leadership? How do you use it in your life? Be open to talk about it.
Okay. Adapting is life. Mm-hmm. It's not exclusively a quality of leadership, mm-hmm. Although it certainly is. Life is about decisions, and leadership is about decisions. And so it's hard to, in my mind, separate any of this from just being who we are and how we live our lives and how we interface and interact with other people. It's all, if you look at it like I do, it's all pretty much the same. Now, in business, you're interacting with people on a level where you might have some authority over them, but yet the principles remain the same. And I know in the Marine Corps, we had a saying, you adapt, improvise, and overcome, which means that things are constantly changing. And that's true in life, and it's true in business. Another Marine Corps saying, no plan survives the first shot. I mean, you got it all figured out, and then somebody starts shooting at you, and the plan goes out the
There's
window, and decisions are made on the fly that'll either be good ones or bad ones that can make all the difference in the world. So we can't become enslaved to the process. We have to understand that we're absolutely going to have to make changes along the way and adapt and make good decisions that are warranted by the circumstances of the time.
Well, I'm going to say something here that you mentioned, that the most common thing in life is the changes. So everything always changes, and that is what life is. But today, in today's world, that is kind of crazy with the things going in the world, a leader really not only has to be adapted because is part of the nature. It's because if he doesn't adapt, he will not survive. So any business
Yes.
that doesn't adapt will not survive, because it's not only the leader, it's creating the culture in your business that everybody has to be adapted. So not only you, it's all your company. What is your experience through that when you were having your business, running your business? Talk about a little bit about that, because many people doesn't know much more about you. So tell a little bit more your story, how you begin your business, all those stories that I know them, but I want the people to know them, that they are so great. How Charles has, for my audience, Charles and I got connected in a very strange way almost 2 years ago, Charles, maybe 2 years.
It's been, I think, in July.
Yeah, so we had like 2 years. We got connected in the more strange way, because I remember one day I was talking about being calm and focused under any circumstance, and he got connected with that because he was always talking about that. And he called me and said, "Hey, I love what you're doing. That we should talk." And we went to a place here in Houston that we begin together almost on a weekly basis. And we're not friends. I believe that Charles is my other brother today. And and not only that, that when I begin to know his story, where he came from, he said, "Wow." So I want you to share your story, Charles.
Well, I founded and operated a business that located things buried in the ground. And to give you some idea, you may have noticed, without knowing what they are, sometimes you're going down the road and you see these little flags all over the place.
Mhm.
I'm amazed at how many people don't have a clue what those are, coming from my background anyway. Those are the marking of buried utilities along the road. And wherever you find buried utilities, it can be in your own backyard. And a lot of people don't even stop to think about that there's an electric line running to your house, and a phone line, and a cable TV line, water lines. There's all kinds of stuff in the ground that runs into your house. And we did a lot of work for, contractors and different things, but the main thing was oil field work. We located, again, anything that would be buried in the ground. There's a lot of construction in the old oil fields, laying new pipelines and all that. And we were the ones that would go out and show them where the things were that were buried in the ground. And it's serious work. We took it really seriously, because when you're talking about gas lines and petroleum lines, uh, or electric lines, the hazard of these things being damaged can be serious accidents or injuries, and even fatalities. Once we located an 84-inch high pressure gas line. I just imagine the amount of what's going through that pipeline and what would happen if it was damaged. And the men on backhoes that are having to work around these things are are in danger. So we took very seriously what we were doing, and I tried to create a culture uh, within the ranks of my people that I absolutely wanted to know. I wanted them to feel totally free to speak up as we discussed. Okay, here's what we need to do. Here's what we think is there. Decisions need to be made. And ultimately, of course, I'm the one that has to make the decision. But I insisted that everyone who were skilled locators themselves, who had a lot of experience, I wanted to know what they thought. And so when it came down to strategizing for how we might want to go about uh, providing the service to the client on this particular day or time, we would talk about and share ideas, and I would take very seriously what other people suggested. And yet, in the final analysis, as I said, I had to make the decision, and sometimes I made good ones, and so sometimes the guys were right. And whenever that happened, I'd always acknowledge it. I'd tell them, well, you outfoxed the old man here. You all were right, and I never had any problem doing that. So we worked as a team, and uh, I treated them I treated them with respect and dignity that was due uh, men who understood the job we were doing. I was the most senior and probably the most knowledgeable, but I had good people, and I wanted them to feel engaged in what we were doing. And again, it was about decisions and how to go about it. Uh, and that was sort of the culture that I tried to develop in the field with the people that worked for me.
Well, you said something that is key, culture. So when you talk about doing something like, for example, being an adaptive leader that is adapting to the situation, depending on how the things are going, is creating the culture. Is creating the
Yes,
culture. And by going a little bit more deeper, Charles, because the audience doesn't know why you begin, because the people can say, why this guy put this locating bird things there. Why you begin that business? Why you came that with that business?
I I had an interest in it. It's hard to explain the moment. Uh, I knew somebody who did the work, and this was years ago, and he would talk about it, and it just sounded like it was important work what he was doing, and that it meant something. There were people depending on him for really their lives. They were trusting their lives to him getting it right. And I had an experience in the Marine Corps. Uh, I came to believe over the years that uh, the first thing that I ever located that was buried in the ground was a landmine. I, I was crawling on my belly at night, probing the ground ahead of me with a bayonet, and I was concerned that there were mines in the area. and I don't know what it was, but I suddenly hit something metallic,
Wow.
and I didn't dig it up. I decided maybe this might not be the best way to go, and but long story short, I realized when I was talking to the man that was a locator, and he was talking to me, I realized and thought about this, that locating things in the ground could be important. You need to know what's there. But I just got had an interest after talking with him, so I got a job. Kind of like I think Dale Carnegie recommended to young people. He said, if you want to know the key to success, he said, find out something that you'd love to do, and get a job doing it, learn everything you can about it, and then start your own company.
Okay, that's great.
So I got a job and just became a locator. I learned everything that I could from everybody around me that I could possibly know. And when I felt like I had the knowledge and experience, I quit them and started my own business.
That-
And so that's sort of the story. Uh, but there's you know I could kind of chase a rabbit here and get off the subject, but there's opportunity out there, and for people who are looking for it and who have the courage to uh, make the decision to go on their own. It is an important decision that you make, but and you have to be uh, and you have to be willing to have leadership skills to grow the business and bring good people on and be able to lead them toward the missions that you have.
Back in the days, there were things that you were doing things through common sense. Today, you talk about emotional intelligence, you talk about resilience, you talk about servant leadership. These are things that today have a name, but back in the days, you did it because you needed to do it. You needed to have good people. You needed to have people working in a good way with you. So many things were done because common sense to do it. I'm gonna say something here. Charles, he not only that, he began his business because he had, in addition, a lot of attraction for archaeology. And that maybe he didn't mention, but so he is like a archaeologist that he transformed his archaeology skills in what he became his business. So this is something that a person that adapts to the situation can do, because that's what makes a person when you adapt to what is going on. This morning we were talking about the case of Netflix. People don't know the story of Netflix, but Netflix began like the red box or the blockbuster business, but they understood they needed to adapt to the new thing that was coming, that was a streaming service, and it became what it is today. So there are some companies that survive, there are some companies that don't survive. The ones that
Yes,
survive are those that can adapt to the situation.
absolutely, absolutely.
And this is something that maybe in today's market that is so volatile, what will be your recommendation to somebody that is beginning a business or is running a business? What will be your recommendation?
Well, uh, if you're thinking about starting a business, that was your question, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So you you need to understand the skills, as I was talking about earlier, to have the skill level to do the type of work that you want to do, and and to then pursue that, you have to realize that if you're starting a business from scratch, and over the years I've started 3 or 4 of them, I guess, uh, it's going to be tough in the beginning. And your ability to persist and persevere and not give up will be critical to the success of your business. You can't you can't assume that just because you went down and got a DBA that everybody's going to start calling you. They don't even know you're in business, and so you have to figure out a way to get the word out what you're doing, and be patient, and willing to uh, persevere to the point where success will come. Uh, Too many people get discouraged and quit before they've really even had a chance to succeed.
Yeah.
But it'll try you, and you have to just believe in what you're doing. And one of the things that a little saying that I've always had is that failure is not an option. You don't go into something with a plan to fail. Don't go into anything with a fallback plan if that you're going to go to if things don't go right. What you're doing is you're setting yourself up to fail. To quote a historical example, you burn the ships. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you launch a military
You
campaign and
burn
you
the ships.
sail off to another country, and you get out of the ships, and the commander ordered these men to burn the ships.
We're gonna stay
It's
here.
it's we're not going anywhere. We're staying here, and it's do or die. We're either going to make it or we're not, but we're going to die trying.
Yeah.
And it's hard to beat a man with an attitude like that. And you can have that kind of an attitude. But I will say, and this is definitely in the context of our conversation, that you don't have to get locked into a plan that's failing. You have to be willing to improvise, adapt, and overcome. You have to be willing uh, to change the plan and be flexible in what you're doing, and don't become enslaved to the procedures that you're trying to follow, but realize that when you started this out, what you thought might have sounded like a good idea, but a month or two later, you realize it was a horrible idea.
Well, that's what adaptive leader does. It has the
That's
proper
that is
mindset
adapt.
to when he
Yes,
said, "My friend, we're screwed up. Let's go in the other direction," and you move on. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't mean you quit. You just take another direction and
yeah,
come up with a better idea.
yeah.
Uh, it's all about decisions. Life is about decisions, and success or failure in life is about your decisions.
Correct.
And that's getting kind of bumping up on my book, but it applies in every aspect of your life. Your success or failure in anything is going to depend on making good decisions.
Correct.
And if you make good ones, good things will happen. And if you make bad decisions, bad things will happen. And we all make both. And yet you have to be willing to quickly see your own mistakes, and can't be so full of yourself that you can't even. Well, one of my Texas grit sayings is that if you can't even entertain the idea that you might be wrong, you're never going to understand anything. And so, and so
For the
You
audience that
know,
doesn't know, Charles had the Texas grit. There is a very small sayings that concentrate a lot of wisdom, sometimes very difficult to read, sometimes very difficult to understand. And I'm always laugh every time Charles puts something in LinkedIn. It begins like a big debate about the meaning of
yeah,
what. Tell me a little bit about that, Charles.
yeah. It's people don't stop and think anymore. And if you're going to be a good leader, you have to be somebody that stops and thinks.
Yeah.
And you uh, that's the difference. And so I've tried my best. It kind of my mission in life is not so much what I tell people, but to just get them to stop and think.
Yeah.
And so when I put a Texas Grit saying up, I'll get messages. People will ask me, "What do you mean?" And
Yes.
one of my Texas Grit sayings is, "Never try to give a bobcat a belly rub if he doesn't want one."
Ah,
And people, what do you mean? And I say, it's what I mean doesn't matter. What matters is that you consider what I just said, and where does it take your mind? What do you think about this? There's a lesson here
yeah.
that I get, but you might get something else that is every bit as good or even a better idea than what I'm getting at. And so I never explained them, even though people would try. That would ruin the
You,
whole
you,
thing.
you leave
I
it
want them
there.
to
You leave
think.
it there.
Yeah, I want them to think. I just say something, and never corner something meaner than you are. Okay, I'm not saying anything else. What do I mean? Or like I said, the first one, if you can't even entertain the idea that you might be wrong, you're never going to understand anything. Where does that take your mind? And as a leader, uh, it should give you some points to ponder.
Correct.
And that's as a leader, you're going to be making decisions all day long, every day. And if you don't stop and think about it and just have a knee jerk reaction to things that you do and say and think and feel, uh, you're not going to be a good leader.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me tell you something. What do you think is the most common mindset or behavior that can prevent somebody to be a true adaptable leader? So, what makes a people to be caught in their behavior that doesn't make them be adaptable? What do you think is the most common thing that happens?
I think a lot of people in positions of authority have egos way beyond what they should,
Oh yeah.
and they. I think this is a major problem in leadership.
Yes.
A leader uh, a leader has to be dynamic and make decisions and lead people, but uh, humility is very much in order. Uh, when I was in my work in the locating business, uh, somebody asked me one time to define leadership, and I said, "Well, you drive up to the uh, job site, uh, get out of your truck, and get after it. And every now and then, look behind you, and if there's somebody behind you, you're their leader. And a leader is somebody people follow.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as leading from behind. Not the way I look at leadership. A leader's out there with these people. Stay out of your office in as much as is possible. Get out there where the work's being done. that makes your business succeed or fail. Interface with your clients and your customers. They let them know, they know who you are, and they see you out there with your men, working with them, not just supervising them, but you're down in the trench with them. You see what's going on. You're right on top of everything. And to me, uh, that was what leadership was to me. And a lot of my uh, early learnings in leadership was in the Marine Corps.
Right.
And that's Marine Corps leadership. I mean, the leader is the guy standing up, exposing himself to fire, yelling and screaming at the rest of us what he wants us to do. But by example. You take a young lieutenant that's going to try to lead uh, a bunch of young Marines. Some of these men are alpha males, just like he's supposed to be, and there's no BS
Yeah.
with Marines, none whatsoever. If you're going to lead them, you've got to lead them, and they have to respect you. And so I learned a lot from drill instructors, and just I've always been observant, and just and then I became a corporal, was promoted up and ended up a sergeant with a certain amount of leadership. And yet I I approached it the way I am now. I didn't try to be a tyrant. I just tried to get out there and make sure everybody knew what I wanted them to do, and I wanted them to know that I was going to be the one out front. And seems it served me well.
You made me think something that 2 days ago I was in my church. I'm taking um, kind of a training in my church for leadership in the church, for church service. And I take it very humbly, even if I have some expertise. I went to the scratch like any student. And I remember the professor, the teacher, he was talking about following the authority. And sometimes people fail to follow the authority. And he was saying, now the people are beginning to their new leadership career here, you have to follow authority. And for me, this is something that's part of my DNA, because I come from the oil and gas, you come from the military. But the oil and gas and the military has that very, very clear. Everybody has to follow the authority. There's no question asked.
Yeah,
If you have
yes,
somebody top of you, that's your authority.
yes,
No question asked. No question
yeah.
asked.
That's it. Yes,
It's a given. It's a given. So,
yes.
so, so this is something that unfortunately today many companies have lost that, and that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you're going to be an autocratic leader. Is that you are the authority, and the people have to follow the authority.
Yes.
And that's
Leaders lead.
leaders
And
lead.
I talked about talking to the guys and getting their opinions on things, and that I think is good for any leader. But there was never any question that I can remember times saying, "All right, everybody, shut up. This conversation's over. This is what we're going to do." And I could get away with talking to them like that, I was just kind of they got kind of tickled with me, and I'd tell them once in a while if I got upset with them that I'd go Marine Sergeant on them, and I said, "You don't want to see that," and they would, it was different, and I actually miss it. I retired, and of all things, became an author, and yet I miss being out in the field with my guys. I still do, but at my age, I reached a point where it was just it was getting harder to keep up, and I took toward the end. We walked into just the most god awful places. These pipelines run everywhere, and uneven ground and all sorts of things. And I took a couple of really hard falls. I mean, just wiped out, just felt like I'd been shot, and got up and just went on. And and I'm up getting in my mid 70s, and I got to thinking, one of these days you're gonna fall out here and you're not gonna bounce right back up. You're just it's you you may need to think about doing something else. And so I did retire, but I do miss it, and I love my guys, love my people. I still keep in touch with them and mention some of them in my book. Booby, if you've read my book, I wrote about one of our guys called Booby, and there's a story there. But with me, there's a story everywhere. But
we're gonna go there to the book
yeah,
in a couple of minutes. We're gonna be there.
yeah.
So let's finish here, and we're gonna go to your book. So to finish the questions, how do you see a leader developing this agility to be adaptive, but without losing clarity and consistency in their mission? Because sometimes the people think that if they have to make a switch, they're going to lose the mission. So sometimes the leader can get scared because they have a procedure, they want to continue doing the same thing, but now they have to take the decision if they shift, if they change, or if they continue in the same direction. What do you think about that?
The whole you said it. The whole thing is the mission.
Mm-hmm.
That is everything. It and by mission, I mean we're talking about your objective. Maybe in civilian life, that might be a better word, but mission's a great word. There's something that you're trying to accomplish, something that you want to accomplish, that you need to accomplish, and that you are going to accomplish, do or die, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Well, the first thing you do is here you get started and somebody takes a shot at you and everybody's jumping behind anything they can find and try to take cover. And all of a sudden, the mission is secondary to the distractions of that's all around you while you're out there. Well, you have to deal with the distractions. You have to deal with all of these things that come into play that confuse the efforts, and they're sure to be there all day long, every day. And there's a constant need to be adapting and shifting the focus and changing here and there, to improvise where you need to, where you hadn't even really thought about it. Now you got to do it a little bit differently, and you overcome and recognize that all of that is a part of the process, but never let the challenges draw you off in another direction where just solving the problems becomes what you do all day and all you're focused on. You solve the problems to get focused back on moving ahead with your mission.
Yeah.
And this is just life. If you're set out to on a trip to say El Paso, and you're going to drive across Texas, and you end up on the wrong interstate, and you're heading off in the wrong direction, and you realize you've been on the wrong road for an hour and a half. You get turned around and figure out how to get back on the road. Stuff happens. I mean, whoever that brief little silly statement is profound. Stuff happens all day long, every day, that can distract you from what you're trying to do, and you just have to adapt to it and overcome, and always stay focused on what it is that you're trying to
That
accomplish.
is your
The
mission.
idea, and whatever happens along the way, adapt that to getting back to laser focus on what it is, what your mission is.
And that's what a true adaptive leader does. So, Charles, let's talk a little bit about you, about you, how you came here, what you're doing today, what exactly the audience that doesn't know you, what you're doing, what are your next steps. Talk about you.
Well, I've talked, as far as my business is concerned. What happened to me after I retired was I thought I was just going to sit on the cabin porch in a wheelchair, in a rocking chair, and watch the hummingbirds the rest of my life and feel like it was time well spent. But I got bored. I mean, I've always been, just real active, and I have to admit, the first month or two of retirement, it was kind of nice not to have something to do every day when I got up in the morning. But it got old. You can catch up on your fishing in a hurry. And another one of my Texas grid sayings is, if you're still alive, keep living. And so I was still alive. So I started, it's kind of getting into my story, but there was a pivotal moment in my life after I left my company. Um, I was sitting on my cabin porch, literally, and just pondering on the social and political issues of our day and how upset everybody was. And uh, it seemed to me, and what set my whole life on this journey was, it seemed like, regardless of what your political views were or what your social view on social issues were, that didn't seem to matter. It seemed like everybody was mad. Everybody's upset. And I'm sitting there rocking, and I thought, I'm not mad. What everybody is just in a tizzy about everything. And I thought, and so I thought, why is this? I mean, what's the root of this? I came up with the idea that we were just completely obsessed with things that we couldn't do anything about.
Yeah. Very
Not personally, not individually, and we were driving ourselves crazy. But we were also, all this does is just help you escape from coming to grips with yourself. It gives you something that makes you feel like you care, and like you're involved, and you're really not. You're just making yourself miserable. So I came back from the cabin, and I put a post up on LinkedIn, just essentially telling everybody to just calm down and get a grip. You have a life to live, and choose to be happy and content, and follow the way of love, joy, and peace, and patience, and kindness, and just everybody calm down. Well, I posted this on LinkedIn, and I got a bunch of people commenting on it, and they liked it. And so I'm gonna keep this short, but that changed my whole life. Uh, I kept putting posts up on LinkedIn, and
Today,
people
this
were,
guy has 27,000 followers.
yeah, and people were reading it. They were saying the nicest things and encouraging me, and the following grew, And the next thing you know, I have all these people following me. But people started encouraging me to write a book. Hey, Mr. Charles, you need to write a book. And I told them I was pondering on it, which I really wasn't, but they'd shut up and leave me alone about it. And I just kept writing on LinkedIn until finally a man just set in on me about writing a book. And he said, I know an editor, and I'm going to put you two together. You need to write a book. So he put me in touch with this lady, Hillary Jastrom, this wonderful lady. And I had an hour and a half telephone conversation with her. And when I got off the phone, I was writing the book. And so I did. I wrote a book, and I called it Ponder on It, Pilgrims. And it's just a book that encourages people, talks about wisdom, knowledge, understanding, the importance of wisdom, importance of good decisions, and just the things that I felt like were important. And in just no time at all, the book became a 3-time #1 international bestseller.
Wow.
And I was just shocked. And it's now sold in 27 different countries on 6 of the 7 continents. The only continent it hadn't sold on is Antarctica, and I'm planning some kind of an expedition down there in the next year or two. I got to find somebody down there. I'll give them one if I have to, but I want somebody in Antarctica to complete the group. But then I started thinking one day, if you write one book, you're just some guy that wrote a book. But if you write 2, you're an author. And at least that was the way I was thinking. So I wrote another book, and now I'm writing on my 3rd one. So my whole life just shifted into
Now you are an author.
now I'm an author and some kind of a country's philosopher. I think people have called me a philosopher, and but I just tell people I have a message uh, of hope, and I like to talk about it to anybody that'll listen. And I'm available for speaking engagements and podcasts and that sort of thing. Just got back from Hawaii and was had an interview over there by a man, and I got a chance to tell him what I think. You don't have to agree with me, but if you ask me what I think, I'll probably tell you, and then you can ponder on it for whatever you think it's
So your
worth.
trip to Hawaii was a revelation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, great. So you wrote the first, the second, now you're finishing the third. You're open to speaking engagement. I know that you are actively in that area. You want to talk with which type of audience are your preferred audience?
What now?
That to speak. What are the people you want to speak?
Well, any group of people, the subject, my message is universal to anyone or any age. I love the young folks, particularly. Life is about decisions, and they're reaching a stage where they're going to make decisions that can affect their entire life. And it's important that they make good ones. And I talk to them about that. I tell young folks that I am somebody that's come back from their future. This road that they're about to embark on, which I call a pilgrimage. The title of my book is Ponder on It, Pilgrims. And I got that, but life's a pilgrimage. And we're all following it. A pilgrimage is something that has a journey that has a beginning and an end. And I tell the young people, as someone who has been where you're going and has walked 60 miles down that road or farther at least, I've come back and I can tell you some things that you can expect that if you listen to me will make your life a lot better than mine was because I didn't have anybody to talk to me. And I used an illustration. I said, you all don't have the slightest idea what's coming up in just no time at all. But there's a big river up ahead. And if you listen to me, I'll tell you the best place to get across it. Uh, and the reason I know is because I darn near drowned trying to figure out where it was. And I can spare you that hassle and those trouble. I can just show you where it is, but you have to be willing to listen to me. And if you think I'm some old fool that doesn't know what he's talking about, okay, good luck when you get to the river. I'll be praying for you, you know.
So I'm
And
gonna leave here the links to Charles, to his LinkedIn, to his webpage, to your Amazon, to your book. And if anybody that's hearing this is in the college circuit, the university, and want to bring Charles, I can tell you he has a lot to say. So we have 5 minutes to finish this show, Charles. It took 1 hour. Wow, it went
wow.
1 hour.
Well, it's
Incredible.
always like it when I'm with you. I mean, we just sit and gab and talk, and the next thing you know, an hour and a half or 2 hours has slipped away, and we don't want to leave. You know.
I always tell Charles that when I meet with him, we can stay all day long talking, but we
Yeah.
have limited time for this show. So I'm gonna give you final minutes that you want to share with the audience.
Okay. What I'd like to share with you. How about the four golden questions? Do you
Okay.
think that? Okay. It pertains to every aspect of your life. There are four things that all of us do as human beings every single day of our life, and not just every single day, but all day long, every day. We do things, we say things, we think things, and we feel things. And this, whether you're running a major corporation or whatever your role in life is, it's good for you to stop and take note of this fact because it's going on all day long, every day. And what I called the four golden questions is to ask yourself when there's something that you need to do, what would be the wise thing to do? And approach decision making from the point of wisdom. When you have to say something, instead of just blabbering it and coming out with something and saying something stupid or something that doesn't make any sense or something that's going to cause you a lot of grief and cause offense and the tongue is just such a, a terrible thing in so
Oh
many
yeah.
ways and the danger of it. Stop and think for a moment before you speak in a situation where it's important what you say. Give yourself a moment and say, what would be the wise thing for me to say here?
Correct.
And pause and think about it. And then the second or the third is your thoughts. You can take control of your thoughts and you can, what's the wise thing to be thinking about? Don't fill your mind with negativity and strife, but allow yourself to fill yourself with hope and joy and peace and goodness and uh, happiness. You can control what's in your mind. And then the same thing is true with your heart. What is in your heart? Uh, there's just jealousy and strife and envy, and I could go on and naming things. But all of this affects the kind of person you are. And when you start asking yourself these questions, when I came up with this and started living my life based on asking these questions, I was loving what was happening inside my head. Because when you ask this question, your inner voice will speak to you. And I don't know if you believe in an inner voice, but I sure do.
Of course, and not only in the voice, I believe in the Holy Spirit.
And this is how you tap into it. And you'll. A funny thing is, sometimes I'll ask the question, and the answer I get, I don't want to do it. And you know, no,
we have 1 minute left.
Okay, and so you're in yourself. You said, and it's like your inner voice is saying, okay, you asked me what you ought to do, and I told you, and now you don't want to do it, so why are you bothering me? So think in those terms. If you can, I'll shamelessly plug the book. If you get a copy of my book, Ponder on It, Pilgrims, it talks about the golden questions and a lot of other things, and it has over 200 reviews on Amazon, so you can check it out and see what people are saying about it. But thanks for having me on your show,
Charles.
Mr. Jose.
It has been
I love you, brother.
Extreme pleasure having me here. It's an honor having me with you as my guest. I hope that people enjoy this show when it's aired. And well, keep in touch with Charles. Ponder on the Pilgrim, his webpage, his LinkedIn, his Amazon, and keep in touch with him. Charles, thank you very much for having me. We came to the end. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Goodbye.
Join me as I take on the challenge of building a strong support system from scratch and see if I can really make it work. Having a solid support system is essential for any leader who wants to achieve success and maintain a healthy team dynamic.